This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. So this is going to be a different recap than usual, right? One, because the game was just such a disaster, I don't feel the need to put out the same amount of all 22 clips in this one. And the direction that I'm going to go in this week's recap of the rewatch that we're doing. And if you don't know, we're rewatching all of the games from the Browns 2023 season and kind of reviewing them as they come by. But this one's going to break structure because we know the Browns got the butt kicks in this one. There's not really that much interesting stuff to talk about as far as the game goes. But I do think there's a lot of interesting things that led up to this game and that became a fallout from this game, right? So for those of you who don't remember, leading into this game, Deshaun Watson had a bit of an injury. He wasn't practicing, but it seemed like every man in that locker room to a T was pretty convinced he was going to play. I remember talking to people who are in the Browns locker room who cover the team, and they were pretty confident that Deshaun Watson was going to play, given the attitudes of the people that they asked these questions to. Scott Van Pelt laughed at the notion of Deshaun Watson not playing in this game. Deshaun Watson himself kind of shrugged off the notion of him not playing. And it seemed like when they left the building on Thursday, or whenever it is they leave the building, before they play the game, that they were convinced that Deshaun Watson was going to play. Then you get to Sunday, and not only does it seem like Deshaun Watson's definitely not going to play, it seems like he never really had that great of a chance to play. Now, this led to a whole range of conspiracy theories that have since been debunked, right? At the time, people thought that he was faking the injury, but the subsequent injuries that he had and the surgery that he's had to go on in the ongoing rehab kind of indicate that he was legitimately injured at this time, and probably more injured than we assumed. We saw that hit that he took against Tennessee. In hindsight being 2020, it looks pretty gnarly. And when you look at the nature of issues that he had for the rest of the year with his throwing shoulder specifically, you can see that hit and see that, hey man, it never got to a point to where he was fully healed from that. And I think he tried to play through a lot of injuries last year because of that. But you get that injury, the whole weirdness is there. DTR is playing. Now, another thing of context is that not everybody was upset to see DTR play, even though Deshaun was coming off of his best game as a Cleveland Brown versus the Tennessee Titans. People were excited to see DTR. DTR was coming off of a great preseason. And because Deshaun is who Deshaun is, and Deshaun is not somebody that is easy to root for, a lot of people, especially during the summer, glommed on to DTR as the guy that they wanted to eventually replace Deshaun Watson. So they saw this as an acceleration of that process, or at least were hopeful that this would be what would lead to an acceleration of that process. So there was a lot of excitement to watch DTR play football in this game. And then the game happened, and that excitement turned into like straight up scorn for DTR for the rest of the year. Like, I was lower on DTR than most people were at this time, because people were telling me, like, I remember getting voicemails on Cleveland.com about how he's the next Patrick Mahomes and he has Lamar Jackson's ability and all of this stuff. And I was just losing my mind. I was like, how do people think this? Like, I thought it was obviously what it felt like it was, which was people who would rather this Deshaun Watson thing end sooner than later, for a numerous amount of reasons. wanting this DTR thing to really work out, and they're willing to see whatever they want to see in order to justify that from a football perspective. And I was partially correct on that. But since that dream got shattered for a lot of people, they turned their anger about that dream being shattered and directed that 100% at DTR for the rest of the season. Like, you cannot mention DTR without like somebody telling you he was one of the worst quarterbacks of all time or some shit like that. Like, people acted like DTR having to play was like a death sentence when we were just super excited about him being the backup quarterback. I do think that people got a little bit too low on DTR, but I also think, hindsight being 2020, I don't think we were harsh enough about this game on DTR because, again, the situation was weird. And because the situation was weird, a lot of our anger about this specific game, went to Deshaun Watson. Like, he was supposed to play. He was on a roll last week. He finished the game and he doesn't play. What the hell, right? Like, people were very upset about that. And I think that's where a lot of the anger went. So much so that, like, we criticized Kevin for not having DTR more prepared. We criticize other pieces around DTR for not supporting him in this game. But not a lot of criticism went towards DTR. I think people really start to turn on him. Like, the energy was there to turn on him, but I think people really start to turn on him, ironically, after the Pittsburgh game, because he just couldn't throw the ball downfield. But I think in this game, you can see every reason of why the Cleveland Browns signed Tyler Huntley, because that's something that did take us off guard, right? You knew they were going to get a backup, and Jameis Winston was the guy that they went with, which makes a ton of sense, right? Jameis is, as far as a passing style, similar to Deshaun Watson, younger than Joe Flacco, but still similar enough in willingness to throw downfield and attack the deep corners. So that made sense. But then they brought in Tyler Huntley, which people are still debating what that means, if that's bad for DTR, if he's just a camp arm. I really don't think he's a camp arm. He's way too qualified to be a camp arm. And he has, I wouldn't say strengths, but he's better in areas than DTR in an area that I think is going to be key. And I think this game gives you every reason on why the Browns are probably closer to moving on from DTR than like trying to give him another chance again to play for him. And it goes down. There's this one play, hopefully I can find a clip of it, where I think it's his second drive, and he tries to throw this ball deep down the field to Amari Cooper. Now, there's a couple plays like this in this game, but this is the one that happens early. And, he has a clean pocket. All he has to do is just launch this ball deep, throw this thing to Amari Cooper, give him a chance. We'll see what happens. And, like, this ball is so laughably underthrown that it made me have, like, an aha moment watching it. Like, I watched that ball being underthrown, and you guys know, like, I'm a little bit of a believer in DTR more than most people. I was like, hey, I think he could be a little bit of a Brock Purdy in the right system. But watching that throw made me realize he has one massive limitation that is going to prevent him from being successful in the NFL if he cannot correct it. And I don't know if it can be corrected. He can't throw that ball deep. Now, you feel like he should be able to throw the ball deeper because he has a baseball arm, right? Like, he can throw the ball for a lot of miles per hour. Like, he can put zip on that ball. And I think he overcompensates a lot and puts too much zip on the ball. And that's something he can learn and fix. But he puts a lot of zip on the ball. And when he is within 20 yards or 30 yards, he can be very accurate with how he places that ball. But once that ball has to go more than 40 or 50 yards in the air, he's awful. Like, he can't do it. He absolutely cannot do it. And then I went back to look at like some of his stuff at UCLA to see if he could throw the deep ball in college. Like, is this just a physical thing or is this just an actual limitation? Because if it's a physical thing, it would show up in the college tapes. And lo and behold, you look at his UCLA stuff and he ain't really throwing that ball past 30 yards. And when he does, it's not accurate. Like, he was one of the least accurate deep ball throwers his senior and junior year in college football. He was just bad at throwing deep balls. He just could not do it. And that to me put a lot of things in perspective, because one, I don't think PJ Walker was much better at it, but I think PJ Walker was at least capable of like launching the ball downfield, which is why I think PJ played so much over DTR during the season. And also it just spoke to me how important in an offense like what the Browns run, how important that ability for a quarterback to throw the ball downfield is for them. You look at this Browns offense, and you look at the quarterbacks who have been able to find any success under Kevin Stefanski. They can all throw that ball downfield, right? They're not limited by arm strength. You know, Baker Mayfield, most certainly not limited by his arm strength. Arm strength was a major strength for Baker Mayfield and still does continue to be that for him. He can throw that ball far. We know this about him. I think he has the longest incompletion in it. It's a weird thing to have, but he has the longest incompletion in NFL history. Air yards, by the way. Then you look at Jacoby Brissett. We know he can launch the ball downfield. Joe Flacco. We know he can launch that ball downfield. Like the quarterbacks that have had a lot of success, you know, Deshaun Watson, somebody who could launch the ball downfield. And when you look at the throws that you feel like Deshaun has been at his best at in Cleveland, it's been those downfield throws that he specializes in. You look at what he was best at in Houston. He was a downfield passer. Like, the Browns offense needs you to be able to throw the ball downfield, because if you can't throw the ball downfield, and we saw this with Case Keenum, and we saw this at a heavier level with DTR, if you can't throw that ball downfield, you become so predictable as an offense, right? Why the Browns like to throw downfield so much in this offense, right, where you're running a lot of timing stuff, is that it forces the defense to be honest, right? You can't jump this route. You can't pop off on this out route, or you can't pop off on this curl or something, or this curl hook or whatever we're running, or this hitch. You can't bite early on that because we might throw deep, and we throw deep often. And when you have a quarterback back there that has that threat, the offense does work because there is a real sufficient penalty for being greedy. But once your quarterback demonstrates that they are not capable of delivering that downfield punishment, well, then you're just trying to throw the ball as fast as possible before that guy gets it, because everybody knows what's going to happen. Like, it becomes super predictable, because now I don't have to worry about you trying to beat me on the back end. I'll just crash in on this slant that you're obviously trying to throw, and we'll see who gets to the ball first. And I think that's why DTR was throwing those balls at like 100 miles per hour, because he knew that was his only way to win. And you'll notice in this game, if you go back and rewatch it with me, after that incompletion, the Ravens became significantly better at defending DTR. Like, I think they got an interception like pretty soon like, it felt like, oh, we figured him out. We ain't got to worry about a damn thing downfield with him. So if he can't do that, then we just going to crash on everything. And that's what Denver did. That's what Pittsburgh did. And until he develops a sufficient deep ball, which I don't know if he's even going to get the chance to get, he becomes super easy to defend. Like, he's somebody that you can only put in, ironically enough, given how I talk about him, like what's his name? Cliff Kingsbury type offense, where he's just throwing the ball short, and that's just the expectation, and you have things built in for that. But that is a massive limitation for DTR. And watching this game kind of made me realize why they went with Tyler Huntley. And even if you look at Tyler Huntley, he's not a great deep ball thrower. I don't want to give that impression out about him. He's not a great deep ball thrower, but he is capable of throwing a deep ball. You look at his deep ball stats in college, he was pretty good at throwing him, much better than DTR is. In the NFL, he's Tyler Huntley. He's a backup quarterback. They look like backup quarterback deep ball numbers. But it makes sense that, okay, you go with Jameis Winston because Jameis is somebody who could throw the deep ball. It makes sense that if something were to happen to Deshaun and Jameis, you wouldn't want to go back to DTR. You'd rather go to a Tyler Huntley. Yeah, I think they realized some pretty significant flaws in his game. And I realized like some pretty significant flaws in his game by watching this one. And I think the fallout from this game is a lot more significant than people realize. Like, I think the team was also, on one hand, they were disappointed on the physical aspects of what DTR could not show in that game. I think the team was really disappointed in DTR at preparing for this. They gave him that backup quarterback spot. And look, I know people give Kevin Stefanski the flack for this one, and I'm not saying Kevin Stefanski is free of blame from this. He's obviously could have had a better plan just in case Deshaun Watson could not play. And I promise you that they probably won't get blindsided like this again. Like, anytime Deshaun has anything that pops up, they have enough PTSD from 2023 that they will just prepare for somebody else to play just in case. But we can't let that element of it distract us from the fact that, like, yo, DTR really should have been more prepared for this. Like, I don't really necessarily think it's as much as him being unprepared, as much as he just does not have the tools to run this offense. And the Browns found that out the hard way. But also there were times where he just felt lost. Like, he didn't know where to go. Like, he didn't know the play call. It was bad. And I think that caused the team to lose some faith in him, where they were like, hey, I don't know what's going on with him. Like, I don't know if they can trust him. And it's telling that they immediately brought PJ Walker to be the backup over him, and really only trusted DTR in like special package situations. And it's notable that Tyler Huntley does not have the same limitations as DTR as a passer, but also has the added benefit of still being a dynamic athlete if you want to do those packages. Like, I think the writing's on the wall for the kid. I could be wrong, but that's my, like, week 4 just really gave me a euphoric aha moment with him, where I'm like, yeah, maybe this is why this is not going to go the way that some people want it to, and to an extent, the way I kind of wanted it to go to, because I like DTR. I wanted things to be, good for him. And this team had more quarterbacks than one. It's always a good problem to have. But yeah, I think that limitation, his inability to throw the ball downfield, really, really made it super easy for Baltimore to defend him. And you could just see the change in Baltimore the second they realized that. Because when you don't have to worry about the deep ball in this offense becomes, it's too easy to defend, and too much predicates off the Browns' ability to complete the deep ball. And I think that's why they continue to invest in guys like Jerry Jeudy. It's why they made the trade for Deshaun Watson, because he's supposed to be a accurate downfield throwing quarterback. And if they have that with this offense, they're going to be close to unstoppable. But when you don't have that, you are the most stoppable thing on earth. And this game showed that. So that's my rewatch experience from this game. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.